Lots to talk about, Dr. Steve. I kind of
Really? What happened? Anything happened today?
Nope, nothing happened. Just sitting around.
Just sitting around. Whatever.
Watching Fox News, am I?
Watching
No.
Fox News. What's that? What's that? Oh my. Oh. Right, talking about shooting your own foot. My, oh my, oh my.
Oh, I kind of love it. I kind of love it. So let's talk about that. What are your thoughts? Lots of questions from people, even before the stream began. Michelle, Carol, and others are wondering your thoughts on this firing. We think it's a firing at this point.
It is. Yeah, according to the LA Times, it was a firing. Yeah, Rupert Murdoch fired him over J6, over his coverage of J6, which just in and of itself is, I don't know what to say other than it's just suicidal in the end. It's absolutely suicidal. Now, we know the Murdochs are not conservatives in a patriot sense. We know that. We know they're Cheneyites, they're Bushites, they're Romneyites. That they're part of the aristocracy, and they're on the quote right side of the aristocracy as opposed to the Obamaite left side. But they are part of, in this increasingly refeudalized world, refeudalized society that we talk about here in the United States, in the West in general. Obviously, you guys in Europe are experiencing that with the House of Lords in Brussels. In this increasingly caste system like society we're living in, their number one, I mean, actually, one of the last things I heard Tucker talk about on an interview in a podcast that I think I'm going to do a reaction video to tomorrow. Well, one of the last things he talked about was how he finally realized how we really are, like Jimmy Dore talks about, we are in an oligarchy. Where democracy died a long time ago. In that sense, the Washington Post is just mocking us with democracy dies in darkness. We are in an oligarchy. We are in a society that operates by rules, understandings, and goals established and enforced by an economic and political elite. And if we don't vote in accordance with that rule, if we don't cooperate with the sort of virtual democracy that they set up, or what other scholars call post-democracy, where we have elections but nobody gives a crap because nobody participates in them anymore. And even if they do, they're highly cynical about them and their trustworthiness. The first, gang, if you suffer from daily pain, I need you to listen to this message very carefully. As we all age, aches and pains are obviously normal, and we're all searching for effective ways to relieve that pain. And in light of this opioid crisis, this tragedy, safety is more important than ever when it comes to pain relief. And that's where a groundbreaking medical scientist comes in, Clint Winters. Now, you've seen Clint on Fox. You've read about him in Forbes. He's a world-renowned health expert who's unveiled a natural pain reliever that's taking the world by storm. It's called CB2. It's 100% drug-free way to get full body pain relief without dangerous meds. It's the go-to pain reliever actually for hundreds of professional athletes, tens of thousands of seniors, and it is the pain reliever of choice for the UFC, for you MMA fans. Gang, I gotta tell, I was skeptical. I'll be honest, I was totally skeptical about this. But it works. It's like all my daily pain just faded away. My back, my neck, my joints all feel great and renewed. And the best part is CB2 has no documented side effects after years of private testing. It's absolutely the future of pain relief. Just ask the athletes in the UFC. It's their official pain reliever. So whatever you do, make sure to click on that link below and check out Clint's amazingly informative report on how CB2 is changing lives by providing safe and powerful relief at a fraction of the cost of pain pills. Click on that link below right now. If we don't vote in the way that they want us to, they will shut us down. They will overturn duly elected presidents, duly elected governments. I mean, we do it all over the world. That's what a color revolution is half the time. It's the overturning of a bona fide, democratically elected government that's ruling in a way that the powers that be in Brussels and DC and Davos don't want them to rule. And so Tucker said he finally came to this conclusion. You know, he was a defender of the Iraq War. He was a defender of George W. Bush. And he said, I have to spend the rest of my life repenting of that. Because now I realize that all of that was for the purpose of realigning the world in accordance with the ruling whims of an aristocratic elite. And Rupert Murdoch is part of that elite. Whether we like it or not, Fox News is a product of that elite. So it's controlled opposition. It's virtual reality. This is something that's very interesting that scholars talk about. And then I'll wrap it up with this, because then we can get into some specific questions and kind of get into the bones of it, as it were. But there is a Portuguese scholar. I believe you pronounce his last name Machais. And he, as a matter of fact, every time he's introduced, I always think that's his middle name, because the person who introduces him always looks at him and goes, "Is that right?" So I think that's his last name. Mashish, is that right? Did I say that right? He was educated at Harvard, and he's a very, very smart fellow. Worked in the Portuguese government center-right party when they got voted out of power by the socialists. He went full-time independent academia. And he is on the forefront of trying to understand the rise of civilization states. He's really, really, Bruno is his first name. And he's really, he really understands Russia. He really understands the Russian-Ukraine conflict. He can't stand it. He's horrified by it, but he understands that this is Russia decoupling itself from the globalist world order, rising as its own world, its own self-sovereign world, with Eastern Ukraine as a necessary part of it, given their 1,000-year history. He understands China. He understands India. He understands Iran, especially, very ancient civilization that's reaching its apex of civilizational significance in the theocracy. He understands Turkey, he understands Sub-Saharan Africa and the Pan-African movement and why it's moving towards Russia and China. That's how you have to understand Sudan and what's happening in Sudan right now. So all of that sort of stuff he gets. And when he was asked, well, what about America? And he's, by the way, he's very bullish on America. He thinks we're going to have, he's very much like Peter Zion. He thinks in the post-globalist, post-Pax Americana civilizationalist world, he sees America in many ways actually turning into its own unique civilization state. Just because we have all the natural resources, we've got everything, we've got all the money, we've got the superpower military status, but we're going to be a very different kind of country. And when asked how so, what makes America so unique, he said something interesting. He said, America basically functions as virtual reality. And this really hit me hard when he was talking about it. And he said, what I mean by that is America has, up until this point, lived out a kind of contradiction. And the contradiction is, because we're liberal, you're free to do whatever you want. But here's the contradiction: except reject liberalism. You're not allowed to reject liberalism. We're liberal, and he means liberal in the broad sense of the term, sort of the liberal consensus of individual rights and free markets and lifestyle values and so forth. Just sort of a soft liberalism that became the dominant reigning paradigm after World War II here in the States, and then we tried to export it to the rest of the world after the fall of the Soviet Union. But that liberalism said you're free to do anything you want except reject liberalism. You're not allowed to do that. And so he said, how do we work that contradiction out? And then he said, by virtual reality. So where Hannah is, it's very interesting. She's at New St. Andrews. New St. Andrews is a Christian college, but it's part of a very growing, vibrant Christian community that even, I think it was NBC News. I forgot who came out and interviewed Pastor Doug Wilson. I think it was NBC. NBC News accused of trying to create a theocracy in Moscow, Idaho, not Moscow, Russia, but Moscow, Idaho. And, to his credit, Pastor Wilson's like, well, we're going to live out Christian principles, and Christian principles are the most freeing principles imaginable. That's what Christianity is all about. It redeems you so you can be free, and therefore you don't need a lot of government. But you're sure not going to have a lot of this liberal crap. And then he mentioned like same-sex marriage or something like that. And it was so funny because the interviewer then looked at him and said, even though that's the law of the land. And Doug Wilson didn't miss a beat and said, you mean like Roe v. Wade? So I was like, ow. So it was a perfect response. But what they're doing in Moscow, Idaho, is they're actually living out civilizational Christianity, civilizational freedom. Liberalism won't allow that. That's why NBC has to come in and say, no, you're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to establish a patriot-based faith, family, and freedom culture. You're not allowed. Well, but I thought being a Christian in America in particular, not Sweden, in America, I thought being a Christian meant, giving tithes and, giving Jesus everything, giving him my all, and, giving him time, talent, and treasure. Yeah, it does. American Christianity is very, very fervent and very vibrant, but you are not allowed to bring it into the public square. That's what he means by virtual reality. You're not allowed to actually change society around it. You're only allowed to go so far, no farther. And guess what he said? And he said, you know what? The powers that be said to Trump, you're allowed to pretend you're a nationalist. You're allowed to engage in a virtual reality of nationalism, but you're not allowed to implement those policies. And if you try to, we're going to take you out. So what I'm seeing with Fox is that is the emblematic embodiment of American virtual reality. It's claiming to be conservative. It's got what had a lot of Bongino, Tucker, and all that. It had a lot of incredibly inspiring personalities. But in the end, none of them are allowed to change a whit of how our society functions in accordance with the whims of an aristocratic elite. And Murdoch is part of that aristocratic elite. So Fox News, by definition, must be, we call it controlled reality, but this Portuguese scholar actually called it, I liked it even better, virtual reality. Tucker, it seems to me, as of today, has officially broken free of that virtual reality and is ready to join among the ranks of the patriots who are going to storm the castle like they're doing in Moscow, Idaho. We're going to storm the castle and break through the simulacrum, the simulated reality, and awaken a nation that is truly dedicated to faith, family, and freedom.